Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna be reacting to a video called Why is Swedish Metal So Melodic? Very interested to find out, so let's check it out and comment, like and subscribe.
Whether it's death metal, black metal, power metal, or doom, Swedish metal is bursting with melody. Now, melodic forms of all types of metal are found all over the globe, but no other geographical scene is so deeply defined by it than in Sweden's strongholds of Gothenburg and Stockholm.
Okay.
Now, before we get too far, let's just run through a quick list of a couple bands in each subgenre so you could really see the breadth of what we're talking about here. Death metal? You've got In Flames, Dark Tranquillity, At the Gates, Amon Amarth, Arch Enemy, Soilwork, Hypocrisy, Edge of Sanity, the Growling Era of Opeth,
there's so many.
Dismember, to name a few. On the black metal side, there's Dissection, Marduk, Nagelfar, Necrophobic, Unanimated, Onward to Power Metal, Hammerfall, Sabaton, Dream Evil, Nocturnal Rites, Falconer, Lost Horizon, Wolf. What else here? Doom! Count Raven, a bit of Candlemass, Let's Be Gracious, just lump all of Catatonia in there. Isolé, Grand Magus.
How many bands out
here?
Now
you know the shorter list is actually Swedish metal bands who aren't melodic. When you look around the world, yes, there are pockets with their own scene and recognizable style, but nothing is to scale of what's going on in Sweden.
Okay.
How did this happen? And why here? There had to be some sort of big bang moment in the country that set this whole thing in motion, right?
I mean, if you look at those bands that you mentioned, all of them born in the 70s, with virtually the same age, most of those. In Flames and Dark Tranquillity. In 82 or 83, there was something called Heavy Metal Marathon that they aired on national television. If you
it's a cultural thing.
Swedish metal guy of that age, they would have seen that show.
For me, it's not just an album that stands out. For me, it's a show. It was a show that was 1983 in Dortmund. It was broadcasted on Swedish television. It was Judas Priest, Ozzy Osbourne, Scorpions, Iron Maiden, Crocus, MSG, Quiet Riot, and Def Leppard.
So Maiden were really important, so was the Scorpions. And those bands were melodic. In those days, we only had 2 channels on the TV. And this was in the middle of the night, and you had to beg your parents to be able to stay up, because you were only 9 or 10 years old then.
I was 10, and I begged my parents I could be awake, because it was
stay up at night?
Yeah, it was late at night. Wow. And that turned me into a metalhead. Scorpions
Love at First Sight
was one of the first bands that I really, really digged, amongst others.
I saw the same show, just later.
Really?
I was I 7, 8, so I was not allowed to stay up for that one.
Think about that. 1983. Iron Maiden just released Peace of Mind. Judas Priest released Screaming for Vengeance 1 year earlier. Ozzy had just dropped Bark at the Moon. Scorpions' Blackout was released in 82. Def Leppard were getting big on the back of Pyromania. Quiet Riot's Metal Health became the first #1 metal album in the US ever. The Michael Schenker Group, whose star enjoyed earlier stints in both
Surprised it took that long. I think, isn't this genre, so old?
UFO and Scorpions issued Assault Attack in 82, and Crocus's Headhunter had just come out. We're talking some of the biggest metal bands and albums of all time, not to mention what they had all already accomplished, all being put on display in front of Sweden's most impressionable young minds. At this point, it's pretty easy to see the trajectory of what happened here.
These formative years.
Kids stay up late, watch big heavy metal show, have mind blown by some of the flashiest guitar players ever, and a few years later, they start to form bands of their own, bringing in a bit of their own national heritage as well.
And then on top of that, we have this in our system, I think, is Swedish folk music. Which is very, very melodic. Something that we latched onto. In Flames did it.
In the coming years, a lot of extreme metal started to enter the picture. At that time, nobody's really forming bands looking to merely clone their favorite artists.
Sure.
Everyone wanted to add something new to the mix, create their own style.
And since we were listening a lot to German speed metal and thrash metal, and Iron Maiden and new wave of British heavy metal, we incorporate that into our music.
It's been influenced by that.
Became the more melodic death metal.
yeah, like hearing melodic death metal for the first time was kind of a shock for me. It was different, you know what I mean? It was so much more song-oriented and catchier on the surface level. And you know, I think a lot of the early Swedish bands that we bit from found influence in stuff like Boston, like early, like super layered harmony kind of stuff.
I do feel like a lot of the Swedish death metal stuff is like really close to like rock music or closer than the American stuff, and you can see that in a lot of the Swedish bands like going more in that.
Isn't like metal sort of like a subgenre of rock? Maybe I'm totally off with this.
Direction, like in the 90s and stuff like that, but especially Edge of Sanity to me is like really rocking, and you get that melody there and progressive kind of aspect.
Combined with those classic influences were those more furious elements of thrash that were surfacing alongside feverish tape trading in the early extreme metal underground. There were specialty record stores too.
But we had a couple of shops in Sweden. One was a shop called Heavy Sound, and there was another shop, House of Kicks, that put out or distributed Peaceville, Earache, and then Active Records. They brought over some Brazilian Cogumelo record stuff like Sarcophago and Sepultura, Holocausto, Volcane, all that stuff.
All those names are quite scary.
You had to find those shops in order to find that type of music. And then you saw that, wow,
before the internet.
this types of music did exist a couple of years earlier in countries that you didn't know had a metal scene at all.
I was more a fan of death metal, so I noticed that death metal was happening around the world. Because to me, when I started listening, it was just heavy metal. But then I wanted something heavier.
How did people find out about stuff like this before the internet?
And heavier and heavier. And that led into the speed metal, the thrash metal. Then I heard Scream Bloody Gore by Death, and I was like, what is this? Just like, it was something unique and a voice from a different world. But and that just opened up a whole new genre. And I absorbed everything. And we had a really cool record store in Gothenburg called Dolores, and they imported a lot of these albums. And I was in school in Gothenburg, and I went there all the time just to pick up, you know, whatever was new that week. And the guy who owned the store was awesome, just showing us stuff.
It's like the playlist of that era.
Being a fan of these bands, me and my friends back then, we wanted to be part of a scene. And a lot of things were happening in Stockholm as well, and death metal scene that was coming forward.
Bands were influenced by poorly recorded demos that helped intensify this ugly new sound that was cropping up. Suddenly, it seemed like there was hope, that there was more to this than just jamming in the basement with a few friends.
To have a record deal that's not going to happen, you know.
It's a dream.
But then with, say, Napalm Death, the Scum album, when that hit, was like, okay, what's happening here? You had the blast beats and all that stuff. And then along comes some of the Swedish bands, but the scene was so small.
But it was really cool to see.
Doesn't seem small.
The bands like Entombed and Dismember and Tiamat and Unleashed and these bands, because Entombed got a record deal with Earache Records. Dismember went to Nuclear Blast.
That he was selling.
Tiamat went to Century Media, and
otherwise it wouldn't have gotten record deals.
Got a deal with Peaceville, and you saw that, oh, it's possible actually.
Yeah.
Our bands get recognition from outside of our little sphere, you know, like outside of Gothenburg, outside of Stockholm, and maybe we have a shot as well. So that was very cool and inspirational.
With all of these bands breaking out of their home country and attracting a worldwide audience, it wasn't long before the ripple effect was being felt elsewhere around the world, especially once Carnage's Michael Amott pursued his opportunity as the new guitar player in England's Carcass, alongside Bill Steer. The result was the end of the groundbreaking gore grind era of Carcass as the band dished out necroticism in 1991, which found the group drifting into a more controlled, rhythmic dynamic ripe with pristine melodies.
That sounds so interesting.
2 years later, he helped draw the dividing line among the group's fan base when the hyper-melodic Heartwork dropped a landmark release in death metal's evolution.
I can appreciate it now, I guess now that I'm older or whatever, but when I got it on cassette,
You didn't like it?
I was just a Carcass. I was f***ing obsessed, man. I was part of the
okay.
scene of dudes, the late 90s, the Carcass cloning, you know, that everybody was trying to do. That's what Cattle, that was like our MO, was like to pick up the torch or whatever, which, you know, a lot of us had been kind of, I don't know, let down, I guess is the word, you know, but we were a little more immature and we knew what we wanted. We wanted the next heaviest, gnarliest thing, and you go from Reek Putrefaction to Symphonies of Sickness, which is the greatest extreme metal album of all time. Just there's nothing comes close. There's a lot of imitators. It was just disgusting. It was very frightening. Well, back to Heartwork, I got it on import, I think I remember it was a good couple months before it came out in the States.
Oh, of course.
So I got it on this import cassette, and then I heard it, and I was just like, oh shit, they did the Black Album thing, they did the Metallica thing, damn it. And, but unlike the Black Album, which my friends all sat and tried to convince themselves for a good week or two that it was a good album, unsuccessfully.
Oh no.
Heartwork was just, the musicianship was just too amazing, you know. So at the time, it wasn't what I wanted to hear because I was a immature, hyper kid, or you know, dude, you know. And but in hindsight, it's a phenomenal record.
Even without transplanting
many such
Swedish
cases
musician into a highly influential band, the country's metal scene served as the nexus for another scene on the other side of the world: metalcore.
What is that?
All the melodic death metal albums that wielded influence over metalcore's development in the late 90s and early 2000s, one record stands out the most.
At the Gates, Slaughter of the Soul, when that dropped, it was just just the sheer energy of the whole record was the thing I noticed at first. It was
wow.
Like everything's just.
Oh good, I want to listen to this.
Yeah, and his voice, because it was like Carcass and him were the only bands really that kind of had that high, sort of like crunchy sounding vocal, where death metal in general was very low and growly, which I liked, but when that record came out, it blew me away. And then, like,
so it was different.
The lyrics, dude, 22 Years of Pain, I could feel it closing in. What is that, Dead But Dreaming? Like, just, the lyrics were so heavy and so good, and man, and then like the acoustic interlude stuff and the melody.
Acoustic?
Yeah, so good. To this day, you put that record on, I will destroy things.
What are you gonna break?
God.
Whatever, put it in front of me, I'll break it.
My heart?
Whatever.
Yes.
If that's the case, yes.
Let's write a song about it. No, I think it changed music. I mean, and still, you can't hold a candle to that record.
Wow.
Bands have tried. No, you can't.
I can hold it to it.
So a classic.
Don't light it on fire though.
It's a 5-star record, untouchable.
Wow.
Still, I'm not cool enough. That's what it made me feel like.
You know what, Jesse? It still makes me feel that way.
Wow,
in case
that's
I ever
crazy.
forget that, though, I can count on all of you watching to remind me, I'm sure.
Okay, so I think like this, I admit I don't know anything about like metal music in general. I do not know. I probably have heard it before, but I honestly wouldn't know like what to. I don't know. I don't really know any bands. I do not know like I don't know if I would recognize the sound actually. I mean, if it sounds like loud, I would be like, yeah, is that metal? I don't know. Probably I would be totally off because again, I don't really have the actual sort of like the actual background in order for me to like actually, to grasp, you know, that's metal. But I know I get if it sounds loud, I'll be like, okay, that's metal. But I did not know there were like so many like sub genres between like this because again, for me, and again maybe I'm wrong. But I would think, you know, isn't rock... Oh, I know that rock obviously is different from metal. There are different genres. Although I do think they're kind of similar in the sense that they use a lot of the same instruments. Not all of them, yes, of course, but some of the same instruments. But I don't really know if like the sort of like the melodies and the chords themselves are probably not the same, and that's why it sounds different. And obviously the way you play guitar and the way you play like the drums, the bass, whatever, those are different. But I would say, well, yeah, they're kind of like brothers, right? Like I would call them siblings. I know like cousins, no, probably not cousins, but I would say rock and metal are probably like more akin to like siblings, because they have like the same, probably like, I don't know, the same roots. Although maybe it's like a father and a child, probably. Like I would say rock came first, right? So it's sort of like the rock, rock birthed a lot of like subgenres, and then one of them was metal, I would assume. And then, I am imagining like a little tree. And then metal itself apparently like had a lot of kids, and between those kids there's like the bunch of like death, I think it was like death metal, they had like thrash metal, they had like a bunch of other subgenres of metal that I wouldn't know how to recognize. I have no idea how they sound. I can imagine, imagining a sound. Yes, sure, I'm imagining something like very, very, very heavy. But the way they are sort of like explaining this, it's making me, okay, I mean, once, I have to say, all of the things that they were like talking about, I'm like, I want to go listen to it right now, because I'm so curious the way they're talking about these albums. And it's like, okay, please, like, can I get like a little like a sound, or a little clip of like this sort of like the sound, because it makes me so incredibly curious. They're like, okay, I want to go and actually like hear the albums themselves, because the way they're talking about this is like, I don't know if like, am I wrong, or maybe again it's like a preconception because I don't really know anything about this music. But they're talking again like very melodic sounding metal. So I'm like, okay, if it's like very like, I'm imagining a little bit like the one that he was saying, like was like very like very, very fast, like a very fast rhythm. But apparently there's also like, it's very like, yes, very energetic, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, like it's very like, oh my god, I'm stressed. But then, they're talking about like, oh yeah, but Swedish metal in particular, like it's very melodic, which I'm like, okay, so I can maybe like, if I listen to one song, would I be able to sort of like grasp the melody like on one go and be like, oh yeah, I can maybe like grab the riff or something. Again, I'm not a musician, I do not know anything about this, so I'm just like guessing. But it does sound like very, very interesting, and the fact that they're talking about this, I'm like, I want to go listen to those albums, especially like the one that they were like, it's a classic. The one they were like, well, this one, there was just like the hallmark of like this genre. Like it was an incredible album. I'll try to replicate this. It's okay. I want to listen to that one, and the other the other guy was like, I like when it first came out, like I was like, oh, what is this? It's garbage, it's trash. And then obviously like in like I don't know, 15 years later, 20 years later, you're like, wow, this is actually genius. And that tells you like, again, that happens quite often. Like a lot of albums and a lot of like songs probably are probably like a little bit unrecognized. And when they came out, when they come out, first they come out and people are like, wow, this is like unlistenable. But then, when time goes on, it's like, wow, hold on, like actually these guys were geniuses. And it happens quite a bit. It's like, well, that tells you like a lot about the genius of the people that actually created that kind of music, because it was like they were so incredibly far ahead that they like people didn't really understand this. It was like, no, you'll understand at some point in your life, but not right now. Like it's gonna take you a while. Sad for them, obviously. People like they're completely misunderstood, but eventually with time, it's like, oh, it's a classic. It's an incredible album. So it is kind of like funny. Sad for them, but again, it speaks well of like your genius and your sort of like, I don't know, your creation and your creative like output. That again, it's too bad that they didn't really understand it back then. But now it's kind of like it's recognized as, wow, this is an incredible album. And again, it happens quite often. I think like, well, yeah, especially like I think with musicians, it's like, well, yes, it's like you're way too far ahead of your time. And that also, I think, speaks a lot about how incredibly important I think timing is when it comes to music. In I don't know, it's one of those like probably like creative sort of like lanes where it's really important to really come at the right time, because if you come like a little too early, this is gonna happen. People are gonna be like, what is this? This is like, no, get it, like I don't want to listen to this ever again. But then with time, like you sort of like the culture and people catch up, and it's like, oh no, wait, hold on, like give it back to me. It's actually genius. Or it happens like the opposite, which is like, oh no, your time has passed, and then it's seen as like a little passe and a little bit like, what are these guys doing? Like, this has already been done. So I think timing is also like really, really important, and how important it is to actually like strike out and be like very, recognized by your peers, which I think is like probably like the highest sort of like compliment people I think a musician can get, or especially sort of like in this area in particular, like the fact that so many people and those guys can be like so incredibly proud of themselves to be like, wow, look at all the bands that came later, all the musicians that came like after me, and are like, wow, you know what, those guys were incredible. Like this album, like I listened to it when I was like 12 and it changed my life. And it's like, okay, this is, again, like, I don't know, would be like, I would be incredibly proud of something that has inspired like so many other people that came after me. It's like, well, my creative like output and my work actually inspired people to actually, I don't know, like be a musician or be better or create an album of that sort of like quality, which I think I love. And the fact that how they're actually talking about this, like the guys said early that they were talking about like the Swedish TV that was at the time, there was like a show back in those days, and apparently there was also like some concerts and stuff. Like the fact like one of those guys was talking about this, like I listened to it, like I stayed up late because of maybe like, oh, that sounds intriguing, that sounds good, I wanted to see it. And then he watched it, maybe he listened to it, and he was like, my mind was blown, like my life changed. And I think like that's such a like beautiful thing. And it's like, I don't know, if that happened, like, I don't know, I think it's such a beautiful thing. I'd be crying. Like, it's actually quite emotional. It's like, yes, because sometimes like something happens and you're, as a kid, like you have a formative experience and, you're witnessing something like, again, you either listen to a piece of music, you watch a concert, or you listen to, I don't know, you watch a show with music, you watch a film, I don't know. You read a book, I don't know, like so many kind of experiences that can happen to you when I'm talking about like the creative sort of like aspect of things. And then you get, something clicks in you and you're like, wow, it clicked. And I'm like, my life was never the same. Like I saw the future. It's like, yes, I saw myself, I saw the future, something clicked, and that was it. It's something very beautiful that, you can actually find this. And, again, as humans, that we are able to like do this. I don't know, I think it's a wonderful thing, and it's such a beautiful thing as well. It's like, you know what, like you're so lucky to have actually experienced that, because not everyone can actually say that of, you know what, yes, I watched that and I like saw my whole life pass me by. It's like, oh yeah, I something clicked and I was like, yes, I know what I want to do. This is it. Like, this is it for me. So I cried incredible, and I can only wish that this person and this musician has been able at some point in his career or in his life to actually say to that, actually to get in touch with like the people that actually like inspired him to become this and talk about this moment and be like, you know what, thanks to you, like I am what I am. I know it sounds like very cliche and kind of silly, but it's like, yeah, obviously musicians, like that's such a huge part of their lives. And it's I think when you're a musician, especially like at this level, you're not just a musician, like it's not just your job, it's also like part of you, it's your life. And it's also like, again, it's part of it's not even your personality, it's just like your essence, because it's not like a job as in like, oh, I'm an accountant, like numbers, I don't know, are not part of my life. Some other types of jobs, I think like, especially it happens more, I think, in creative like industries, where like the creative process is so deeply ingrained in what you are that, these kind of things are like, I can't separate myself from my art or from what I am creating. So it is like, so again, in a way, thanks to you, like I am what I am. Or maybe like you didn't like put this in me, you sort of like unlocked it, and you made me realize, hey, you know what, this is what I want to aspire to be, this is what I want to create, and this is the actual lane where I want to be at. So again, the way they talk about this is like, oh my god, it makes me like, it's so happy that people are able to experience this, because it's actually something very beautiful. And yes, the whole Swedish metal, I want to go listen to this. All the bands actually, like they were talking about it. I'm like, I'm so curious to see how this sounds, because it sounds like very interesting. That they, especially again the Swedish part, I'm so curious about the fact that one of the guys was like, yes, it's, they had a lot of like influence from, I think, like American like rock bands. I think they were Americans, but just, rock bands in general, and that's why it's so melodic. But also something very interesting is like Swedish like folk, which I don't think I've ever heard like a Swedish like folk song. So I want to go look up probably like the most famous like folk song, Swedish folk song, and be like, okay, well, so tell me like the top 5 or like the 5 sort of like Swedish metal, like most famous or greatest like songs, and see how they compare. And if I can see sort of like grasp the influence of like, oh, I catch the influence, I can see like where it comes from and sort of like the root of it all. And again, it's like it's in folklore, which I think I love as well, because I think it also like it's, you know, it's kind of like the same, I think, in a lot of countries, but probably I'm thinking a lot of like in the United States, how folk music has obviously like inspired so many other genres. Yes, you know, and I think it influences a lot of other things. Maybe like, again, unwillingly, well, no, unwillingly, but it's just like you can't help but influence this. And I think folk is such an important. It's such an important genre. It's like, yes, you know, it's you know, we tell, you know, as a society and as humans, I think like that's why folk music is so important, because again, it's like it shows like, I don't know, humans and how do humans live on. It's like, it's through folklore, and folk music is one of those examples. And I think it's like, again, it's such a beautiful thing that, again, it's kind of like weepy and, I don't know, kind of like a little cliche and sentimental, but I don't know, I think that's what it is. And again, it lives on. And I think that's the great thing about folklore. Like, it lives on, it passes on. And long after, like, you're gone, like, folk, it's gonna be, the folklore is gonna be there, your essence gonna be there. And look, like, even, I don't know what type of like Swedish folk songs they apparently like what they were about, but it's something that obviously has been around for like hundreds, if not thousands, probably hundreds of years. And look how it came up. Like, look at your essence, how it trickles down, and now it's in a metal song in I don't know, in this day and age. So it is kind of like an incredible thing, and that's why folk is so important. But yes, I want to go look it up, because I think the way they were talking about this made me excited, and now I want to look up like Swedish folk music. Folk music and Swedish metal and Swedish like folk songs specifically. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye!